true. That's true. Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of the Security Table. My name's Chris Romeo. I'm joined by Matt Coles and Izar Tarandach. And if you remember the 1990s, by any chance, you remember the show Seinfeld. Seinfeld was the show about nothing. This is kind of the podcast about nothing. Right? No, come on. We're talking about lots of things. We have serious conversations with us sitting around a Chinese restaurant for the entire podcast episode, and nothing really happened. No, that's a Seinfeld.
But we can still say hello.
Hello. And if you know,
no security for you.
If you know, yeah, that's true. No security for you. All right. What other Seinfeld reference can we make a security analysis of here? I mean, there was the double dip. Double dip was invented in that episode where George Costanza is at I don't remember what he was doing. He's at that party and he dips his chip in the second time, and the kid is across the room is like, "What are you doing? You double dipped." I don't know what the double dip analogy is in security, but I don't know. It's somewhere.
I'm sure it exists.
It's when you have two formats of the same S-ball.
Okay, that was good. That was good. That is a good.
These vulnerabilities are making me thirsty. Yeah,
I was going to say something like you're streaming your logs to syslog and Splunk at the same time. I mean,
there you go. Now here's one for you though. I bet you there's a lot of CISOs that are standing before the board and would like to say the following. So we started building our security program, yada, 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 and then the FBI showed up. Imagine that as a board presentation. So, okay, we got to talk about, this now concludes our Seinfeld memorabilia section of the security table. Let's talk about AppSec versus product security. There's been a number of different articles written over the last couple of months that we've taken a look at, and we want to set the record straight from our perspective as far as what we think of as the differences between these things and similarities. And so shall we start with a definition of AppSec? What the heck is AppSec?
Izar, do you want to go first?
You know how I'm with definitions. You go for it.
You know how I am with this topic. So since we've had a little back conversation prior to joining on the episode.
Cool.
Well, actually, no. So Chris, if you could start, because this episode really is to give our perception of what AppSec and ProdSec are, given and the statements being made in these articles, from various sources. Either some of these things are brand new to people, or certainly there is confusion in the industry about what these things mean. So what do you think application security is?
Yeah, let's work our way through kind of a definition. Now, I just happen to have done my own definition in a talk I did this previous year, the Application Security State of the Union. So I'll give you the definition that I put together for that perspective. So I think of application security as the people, process, tools, and governance that are required to properly secure applications. So for me, I go back to I'm always a bit of a programmatic thinker. Like that's just tend to be how I approach the world, is how do we programatize this thing that we're trying to do? And so for me, application security is what we need to do for the people, the processes, the tools, and the governance to properly secure our applications. So reactions.
So really briefly, what do you define as an application?
An application is anything that is made up of software.
Oh, that's interesting. So let's introduce product security now.
Yeah.
So what's a product?
Yeah. But see, I tend to think of product security, hardware and software, application security software. And some of that is just where I grew up. As we were talking about before we hit record on this episode, I was at Cisco for 10 years. Cisco has 27,000 products that are not quite that many, but they have a lot. They have. And in those days, they had metal boxes that were routers and switchers. What's a switcher? Just invented a new word here. Routers and switches that were, and I used to think of them, there was the metal box component, and then there was the bits that were going into it to drive that metal box. And so I tend to, in my own mind, based on my experience, I tend to attribute product security as the things that I have to do to secure these metal boxes running the software, or you can extend it to cloud services and everything else that's a product. But I think of AppSec and applications as more of a general thing. Like, I don't think of applications as something that you sell. Like, you don't sell, like, I can't go, I'm going to go sign up for this new application. Nobody says that anymore, other than maybe in the context of mobile apps. That's what an application is in the use of that term. So I've talked enough. You guys tell me how you break it down, how you separate it.
So generally, I look at products as things that a company sells. So they deliver to customers versus the things that they deploy themselves, either internally or for their customers, exposed to their customers, like a cloud or SaaS service. But the product security would be securing the things, whether those are physical or non-physical things that get shipped externally and sold, and either sold or given or used by customers. So potentially or most likely mobile applications, because those obviously that's software only that gets delivered outside of the company. Certainly the bits that run on the product, on the physical device and the physical device itself. So the people, processes, et cetera, infrastructure, networking, et cetera, that might get delivered with that physical box, and the firmware and software that it runs. And in the operating software, if we don't, thick clients are not as prevalent today, I think, but, when we used to have desktop software that controls, the boxes, those are product too. Applications being things, business applications, especially being things that the business uses to do all of that work, as well as the things that they may then expose to customers, like, license management and support systems and things like that. And so product security is making sure that from a physical up, right, in the stack, security wise, and then applications, of course, would be anything that sits on top of the infrastructure. If we think of the cloud model of, SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, right, anything that sits on top of the infrastructure, at least, is the application, right, the software portion. Izar, how do you feel about that?
No, so you guys know me. I like to think in terms of analogies, right? And when I went looking for one that could cover this, luckily my wife was watching one of those home improvement things on TV. And I think, and know there are holes in the analogy here, but I think that what came to my mind was the difference between the interior designer that's turning a room in a building into something functional and that works for its purposes and that explores well the space. And that for me is an application. And the prod security is the architect or engineer that comes and builds the whole building around that thing, including all the plumbing and all the codes and all the safety and all that kind of stuff. So, first of all, I was very, I don't know if surprised is the term, by the question itself. And especially when I read that some people think that prod security is an emerging new thing. Because to the best of my recollection, we have been doing prod security for, Matt, how much is it now?
It's been a long time.
Long time.
I mean, my title and your title, actually, we were both product security engineers for a period of time.
We came to work at the prod security office.
In the mid 2000s. I mean, so this is not a new, the terms are not new. Maybe the scope has changed.
I think it's exposure to the market. It's exposure to specific companies, because product companies tended to be the leading organizations that were deploying product security offices and product security engineers. I mean, we had it at Cisco. We were product security at Cisco. That's because we had a company that was driven by a lot of different products that required that level of thing. And it was funny at Cisco, application security became synonymous with what InfoSec was doing. And securing the business applications and the internal applications. And product security was what we were doing as we were serving the business units and technology groups to help them build secure products.
So another thing that I saw in those articles was that there was a tendency to go for the cardinality of the thing. AppSec is one, pod security is many, or pod security is one and AppSec is many, that kind of thing. And I think that I prefer best Chris' approach to defining AppSec, and he went straight where I wanted to go, the PPT, the people, processes, and tools. And I think that I would extend that and say that, to me, prod security, application security is one of the tools and processes that goes into product security. So if I'm looking at some kind of relationship between them, some kind of Venn diagram between them, I would say that, to me, AppSec falls in the middle of the ProdSec bubble, but it goes a bit outside because it can exist as its own thing, right? Mm-hmm. What would make it exist as its own thing, I'm not so sure. Is it a size thing? Is it a focus thing? Is it like if somebody comes and says, oh, what about internal applications? Yeah, what about internal applications? They don't need the same standards and scrutiny that a product would need. Why not? Why have two processes? Why can't you treat your internal stuff as a product, right? You probably gain a lot of stuff in there. I guess that you probably not lose, but you would have a bit of waste in there, as Jim liked to put it. But I don't see why not. So I'm still a bit murky here on the.
I think there's a lot of overlap. I think there's definitely a lot of overlap. I think what you're highlighting is there's inefficiencies if you separate the two, right? But I think that they are different. If we look at business systems, things that a company deploys versus things that they sell, especially if it's associated with hardware, especially, right? The rules are different. And so while there's some inefficiencies if you separate them, because things like the same vulnerability scanners that we use to look at the firmware on a box, can target a business application, right? A cloud application or web application, the same, whether that web application is running, in a private cloud versus on the box or on somebody's desk. So there's no reason to separate those, right? Those are dual purpose tools, for instance. But the rules that govern what you sell and ship, right, need to follow a different set of rules than how you deploy, right? Let's think about like connectivity, right? In the business environment, you own the network, right? The company owns the network. When you deploy it, you're going to have certain requirements. You have a known infrastructure that you're deploying into. Say they're on Azure or AWS, or they have their own internal, network and infrastructure and log infrastructure and whatnot. And those are the rules that govern that application deployment. When you're selling something, you're deploying that into a customer's environment. They're going to run their own firewalls, their own network infrastructure. They may or may not be in a cloud, a public cloud or private cloud or a hybrid cloud. New concept, multi-cloud these days. It's a lot more open, but you also have to be careful of things like inbound network requests and poking holes in the firewall, or what regulations you have to apply. So the design requirements and standards and patterns that you use, and some of the constructs and systems that might get deployed, and how you secure them, and your threats that you're looking for will differ, I think, and you'll have a broader set of things to look at if you're talking about the thing that you deliver versus the thing that you deploy. However, I can see where you think that if you wrap a set of things, even if you deploy it locally, you wrap a set of things as a product, especially if it has a customer facing aspect, like a business application that may, like a support system, right? If that's your business, that is your product, and they're like Twitter, right? Or X or whatever it's called these days. That's a business application that's deployed for customer use. That's obviously its product. Although some people, like I say, we're the product, not the business system. But so is that an application or is that a product? It's not something they sell. It's something they sell, but it's not something they deliver.
Yeah. I mean, they deliver it via mobile app and API endpoints and other things.
Right.
Okay. So I got a different way I've just been thinking about a different way to frame the question. That maybe this will unlock something for us, maybe not. Why is there an application security industry, meaning there's a whole cottage industry of tooling and consulting and everything else, but there's not a product security industry?
Perhaps because there isn't a need for one, because we all understand that a big technical part is being covered by the AppSec one. B, perhaps there is, we just don't take the steps to call it such, because sure, you are a VP of Prod Security. That means that you have a certain number of almost preordained functions under you, and that makes you Prod Security. Because as Matthew said, that there's a number of things that need to be covered.
Do you use the same tools in product security as you do in application security? Or are there other tools? I can't, like the way we approached it when I was in product security, we didn't do anything differently than you could have called us, you could have swapped out AppSec for product security in the core set of services that we delivered, right? In our secure development lifecycle.
If you introduce hardware, there's a difference, I think.
That is where things got different, or there were additional things that had to be considered. I mean, we were dealing with root of trust, and I can't remember what's the thing called, the hardware trusted TPM, TPMs.
Yes. Applications don't generally deal with TPMs because that's all virtualized or abstracted away from the application developer. But when you're delivering a product that has physical components, you obviously need to understand that.
Yeah. So I would say hardware is where it differentiated. But I mean, Matt, I'm curious from your perspective, like, is there a product security industry and I'm just not aware of it? Are there tools that are targeting the product security industry, or is this like a dead end?
Well, so I think there is, but not by that name. There are security tools targeted at product developers.
Okay.
As opposed to security teams. So I think, all right, Izar, obviously we're going to debate here a little bit, but right. So we, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the tools are dual purpose, or rather they have no specific purpose other than looking at software, they're looking at web applications, or they're looking at third-party components in, inventories, or now analyzing for vulnerabilities or code analysis. All these tools will work whether you're doing application development or firmware development. So in terms of, and maybe this is the interesting part about why people see product security as new, even though it's not new, is product security was very much, I think, has always been and really is associated with. I consider myself part of, or more closely related to an engineering function than a security function, especially if you look at security being IT security or cybersecurity versus product engineering. Adding security to product engineering. And in fact, that's a lot of how we approach things, right? Is we want to focus threat modeling at developers. Well, that's developers doing product work, adding security into their role, into their day-to-day lives, as an example. So I think there has always been a strong engineering tool focus with security, and AppSec targeted at security teams doing application security. By and large, I think many of the tools are going to be the same, though. And again, unless we're talking about hardware, if we're looking at chipsec or any of the glitching tools or things like that, most IT teams probably don't have a purpose for that unless they're attacking network switches. Whereas, product developers have a need for that, and maybe even a dual purpose need. Logic analyzers can look at hardware, not just from a security standpoint. They also may use it for quality and support purposes and test engineering and whatnot. And so I think that it's been always there, or it's always been available without maybe that label on it, which is actually starting to open up my mind as to why there's this thought that that's a new thing, even though it's not really new. I
don't know. The more we talk about it, I'm asking myself if this is not one of those cases of what's it? A difference without a distinction, or a distinction without a difference? Because I agree that the tooling and the processes are probably similar, but again, that Venn diagram, the part of it of AppSec that slips out of ProdSec to me is so small, so edge case, that I ask myself if it's not just too much of an edge case to actually say these things are different. Or, on the other hand, you could put on top of prod security a number of things, people and processes, that perhaps really don't belong in AppSec.
Let me give you another example. Let me give you another example that I think could be illustrative for us. I like how I worked that word in there. Illustrative, that's a big word. PSIRT, Product Security Incident Response Team. We don't have a CSIRT. CSIRT, but now there's another for me, CSIRT defends the network, PSIRT defends the products that we build.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yep. But in AppSec, we don't have a PSIRT. There is no such thing. If you asked someone in AppSec, the AppSec program leaders, who runs your PSIRT, most times a director of AppSec does not have a PSIRT function.
Right.
So is this something that we can unlock that is a difference between AppSec and ProdSec?
Again, I don't think that it's a matter of a difference. I think that it's complementary. If we already agreed, and I think we agreed, correct me if I'm wrong, that AppSec is part of ProdSec, then that would just be another bubble on the side of AppSec, just as you pointed out.
I'm going to flip it back on you the other way. ProdSec is a part of AppSec, because AppSec is, when you think about I'm just talking about from a public perception. Like you ask 10 people what AppSec is and what ProdSec is, that probably nobody can give a great definition. But
and random
AppSec
people
is a lot
should know, or just any 10 people.
Any 10 people. I'm just going to go to the Walmart here in my town and ask people.
And by the way, sorry to interrupt, Chris. By the way, we've had these conversations. I don't mean just the three of us, but other folks in the security space have had these conversations. I've been part of some of these. None of us have a good understanding, I think, even within the security space, of what this stuff means, right? Are we cybersecurity? Are we InfoSec? Are we AppSec? Are we ProdSec?
We are too busy securing stuff. I don't care what's the color of the T-shirt.
Do whatever you want. I will just show up and secure your stuff.
But I think it's important that the way you're asking the question is interesting, and the way that we're responding it, I think, is doubly not adding, maybe not clearing up the confusion for folks if they're listening to this now. The processes that a PSIRT or that a CSIRT follow are probably 90% the same. Where you have differences, again, is PSIRT potentially deals with hardware, right? Because you have physical devices. Although CSIRT may deal with physical devices in terms of network infrastructure, especially, access points, but also other things, people security potentially. And so you have a Venn diagram of a lot of overlap, and then some pieces outside of each of them that are unique, I think. So there's a lot of overlap. I think
you're making it, I don't think it's 90% the same. I think it might be 50% the same.
Okay.
And I've had a chance to work. I didn't work for PSIRT at Cisco, but I worked closely beside a lot of people from PSIRT. And, having done incident response in the past, like And like I said, CCERT is about the network, PCERT's about the product. Yes, there's going to be some overlap, but that focus really changes the core of what you're doing as an incident response team, right? Because the PCERT team is responsible for most of the time being notified about a problem out from an inbound source, going to the product team, testing, helping the product team through the process of fixing the issue, and then running the communication process to ensure we tell the people at the right time. Now, when I think about CCERT is has no real outbound. They don't report to the public as far as what's happening, what they're doing. They may receive an inbound. If they get an inbound notification, then things are really bad. Like they're
running a bug, or they're running a bug bounty.
Bug bounties.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Bug bounties another, but CCERTs don't run bug bounties, right? Like
no.
Bug bounty is a product related thing.
Exactly. So let's look at that for a second. Products run bug bounties. Applications, sort of not.
Well, they run bug bounties.
Can we agree with that?
Lots of application providers run lots of SaaS tools, and like people that are building applications, everybody's running bug bounties these days.
So those are not products?
No, I mean, they are products. Because we're selling, to Matt's definition, that we're selling. If you're selling them, it's a product.
If I'm a SaaS tool provider, and my tool just happens to be SaaS, I'm selling you something. I'm giving you a service. You're giving me money. Mm-hmm. How is that not a product?
No, I'm saying it is. I'm agreeing it is because there's money changing hands. But it's also an application. It's both.
It's a product that's made of an application, which we agreed already.
It's a product made up of an application.
Plus a lot of things on top of it.
Right, but products that have hardware also have applications as building blocks. So are we suggesting
I don't see the...
Is product security the superset because it includes applications and other things?
I don't see the hardware as such a differentiator here. If I think about something that I'm selling
have you not dealt with hardware before?
Yeah, but it's like it has some stuff that's different, but there isn't enough stuff in there to put it in a class by its own.
I know a bunch of hardware engineers would say otherwise.
I do too.
I know a lot of people who think that what they do is the most important thing in the world, me included. So,
okay. So hold on. Let's talk about the real elephant in the room on that. That's the difference between hardware and non-hardware. You actually have to build something and ship them somewhere. So you have all the supply chain stuff that you have to deal with, as opposed to
doesn't make it more of a product. Okay, let me give an example, okay? I have this amazing thing here on my wrist. Name's not...
it's a product.
And it's a product.
Hardware product.
And they decided it's a hardware product. Great. And it runs a specific version of an operating system.
Yeah, same here.
And now they decided that they're not going to give me more upgrades. And half of the functionality is dying because Google on the other side decided that I have to have the newest version for the apps to run. Okay? No, the Google app ecosystem is a completely different word. You just know now that it's an Android thing, it's not an Apple thing. So that you knew from the shape. But anyway, so my point is, if I can remember it, is, okay, this thing is hardware. Great. So according to your definition, it makes it more of a product. But you know what? It could not be hardware. It could be an app that lives in my Windows machine as if I had one.
Well, that wouldn't be...
No, not sure I have one. It's my game box. Anyway, so it's running into a Windows machine, and all it does is run exactly the same apps. Is that thing less of a product just because it doesn't live in a separate...
because it doesn't have hardware attached to it. You can't wear it on your wrist. That was the point, is to wear it out of the house.
I'm not saying it's less of a product.
That's not what makes it a product.
It's a different product. It's a product that has different aspects. Software alone has different criteria for security than hardware and software.
Okay. Another example. You have this firewall box, wonderful firewall box, right? You can get it as a 1U, you stick it in your stack, everything is beautiful and great. It just so happens that you can also get exactly the same functionality in the form of a virtual machine that you stick in your network. Okay?
On a virtual machine, on a VM server that
On a virtual
you deploy?
machine, yeah.
That you deploy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is one of them
Versus
less of a
prepackaged.
product than the other?
And there's
It's
still
different.
hardware. There's still hardware underneath in the cloud environment.
There
Yeah,
will
but
always
you're
be
not-
hardware
but you
underneath
as-
because I can do ones and zeros in my fingers.
But as a supplier of the,
That's
as
not
a
a
supplier of the product, the software only product, you're not governing how the hardware runs, nor do you necessarily care how the hardware runs.
But
your
does
threats
that
are
make my
different.
product less of a product?
Oh my God, we're not talking about making it less of a product.
Who cares? Who cares about
Why are you
what is
sticking
it?
to the hardware?
What is it? A 1 to 5 scale of how much of a product you are? Well, you're about a 4. I mean, you're almost the most amount of a
But
product.
if you
can
had
be.
hardware,
I mean, if we really want to go that route, we could talk about wireless sensor networks that, run, environments, smart fields and things where you have thousands of wireless devices out in the field talking to an edge gateway. How
My
much
primary-
of a product is that?
My primary question is, why am I more confused now than when we started this 30
I'm
minutes
totally
ago?
confused. I have no idea where I went.
I gotta go read the articles again and try to see if I can find some wisdom.
No,
within.
seriously. Let's bring it back then. Let's bring it back. We're almost at time, so let's bring it back. Okay. So, who contains whom?
I'm going to go with product security includes application security.
Great. Okay.
Okay, hold on. I'm I'm on the other side. I'm going
In
to say
part.
the other thing.
Oh
And I
my
have to
God,
say
we
in
had to go
part.
there. Now we need
I have to
another
say in
episode.
part. We do need we have to further this conversation somewhere, but product security has parts. Actually, let me take a really brief step back. If we look at application security, securing applications, and we've defined web applications and desktop software and mobile applications as applications, and those can be part of the things that you sell, like that watch that you were showing earlier, then products must contain applications. Product security must contain application security. However, applications can be on their own and not be part of products. So what do you call that?
But then that application becomes a product.
Yeah, and I'm gonna come at this from a different direction, and I'm just gonna go purely based on market share. And I'm gonna say application security eats product security just because application security is the thing that exists in the market. There isn't a product. I mean, that was a trick question. There is no product security space. There is no, there is an AppSec space of products that are built that are used in product security programs. But there is AppSec is really what everybody refers to what all of us do at this point. I mean, for example, hold on, I have to go check on the Open Worldwide Product Security Program website.
Worldwide, yeah.
The OWP. No, wait, there is no OWP. There's no OWPSP. There is that right? Okay. There is OWASP, which is the Open Worldwide Application Security.
What was
project.
it called before they had a name change to try and bring
It was
a
called
bigger
web.
tent?
I mean, it was just web applications, right?
Web application,
but
yes.
But my point is, application security is at the core of that. And I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really care what we call it. We're still going to do the right things to secure the hardware and the software that go into products and applications both. My point is, I think AppSec has just become, it's just the same way AppSec replaced software sec. We used to call software security used to be the thing, and then AppSec kind of took it away and squashed it, and now nobody really uses software security anymore. We don't really say that or use it as a term as much as we used to 10 years ago.
That's an interesting statement. I agree with you. It's interesting because maybe that's where the problem lies, right? That within product security, you have software and you do software security of products, or you do software security products that are either software or that contain software. You do software security. Applications can be something different then, right? But those terms are now sort of munched together as you described.
And I'm just approaching it from how the industry sees it, like how the external view of this.
But now, just to put it in there, as you guys were were talking, I was looking into the inside tomes of wisdom and experience. And I remember one place where I worked where there was a distinction between product security and application security. And the distinction was that product security could stop releases. Application security couldn't. Because product security was much more enmeshed with the product side of the thing, with we have to push stuff out because we have consumers waiting for and paying for stuff, than AppSec. So the escalation of risk was AppSec, ProdSec. ProdSec makes a decision, go, no go.
Interesting. The other aspect, and I know we're getting close to the end of this episode, but the other aspect is, would you consider if AppSec closely tied to cyber or IT security? And if so, are product security?
You're not going to take us there, are you?
We have to.
Can we just go with asterisk security?
Well, we're just security then. That's awesome. We can do that.
Can we just go asterisk security and that's what we do?
Be done with it. Well, you know what? We're out of time, so we're gonna have to come back and revisit this again. We were hoping for some clarity by the end. I think we just threw some more mud in the water and stirred it up and made some security soup, I think is what we did at the end of the day. But we'll continue this conversation. We'll try to find clarity. That'll be our goal.
And maybe we'll get some guests on to help us answer this.
Yeah, we'll get some people
perhaps
smarter
we can
than
bring
us.
someone who
Smarter than us that can come and just tell us what it is. That's what we're going to aim for.
Yep. That will help.
We'll debate, we'll debate with them. No matter who we bring on, we're going to debate with them about what it means. But folks, thanks for listening to the Security Table. Stay tuned for a future episode where we will provide